Are you ready for what will be one of the busiest weeks in the financial markets this year? For the US, we've got the Federal Reserve monetary policy announcement, inflation data, retail sales data, University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index, Empire State Manufacturing Survey, and Philly Fed surveys, all of which are fairly important reports. On top of that, we have the European Central Bank meeting and the Bank of Japan meeting. And then we also have employment reports from the UK and Australia and GDP numbers from New Zealand. So a tremendous amount of data. Between the Fed, ECB, and BoJ, only the ECB expected to raise interest rates. Not only are they expected to raise interest rates, but they're expected to signal that there could be another rate hike in the latter part of this year. One, maybe even two. For the Federal Reserve, no change is expected, but they are expected to deliver a hawkish pause, which means that they're going to leave interest rates unchanged, but say that they're not done yet, and that a pause does not mean an end to tightening. We have the Federal Reserve also releasing the economic projections and the dot plot, so all of that will make the FOMC meeting even more market moving, even more impactful, because investors will be digesting not just what the Federal Reserve does, not just what Fed Powell says, but how the rest of the central bank in the form of the economic projections feel. So there's a lot to kind of download from there. And we know that the Fed is motivated to pause because they want to see how incoming data is. And incoming data really means inflation and retail sales data, which is what we're going to get this week. Now, of course, we probably want to see more than this upcoming week's reports, but it does give us a sign of the trend and the direction of the way things are moving for inflation as well as retail sales. So all of this will have an impact on the dollar, US stocks, US treasuries, as well as gold and oil, because those are priced in US dollars. Now, I think, there's a pretty broad consensus that in terms of the Fed, there's going to be a hawkish pause, so that'll probably end up being a bit more dollar positive. But the data itself may not be so great because inflation around the world is starting to moderate. It still remains high, but starting to moderate. So that becoming softer. And also a lot of consumer staple companies have reported weaker sales. So that could also come in softer. So the data could actually end up being, just as market moving as the FOMC rate decision. So a lot going on this week. Now, ECB, we already talked about how they're the only central bank expected to raise interest rates. We also have the German ZEW survey, which will probably be a bit softer given the recent trend of weaker Eurozone data. The Bank of Japan is the most interesting, in my opinion, because they're not expected to make any changes, but they're getting very, very close to adjusting the yield curve control. And this is important because unlike the Fed, which has been on a trajectory of raising interest rates for some time, this would be a significant change and one we haven't seen from the Bank of Japan in a very, very long time under this new BoJ governor and leadership. So that could lead to quite a bit of movement in the Japanese yen. In terms of sterling, the market is looking for another rate hike from the Bank of England this month in June. So the employment report will play a very large role in either confirming or casting doubt on that. And the Australian labour market numbers, if you remember, the RBA said that they could see the need for more tightening. So that could also make the jobs report very important. I think the Canadian dollar is taking a back seat because we had the weaker jobs number follow the Bank of Canada's surprise. And the Bank of Canada did kind of remove the line talking about the obvious need for future rate hikes. So I think that we may end up seeing some weakness in the Canadian dollar this week against the other major currencies. But of course, the focus is on the US dollar, US data, FOMC. And I think that, the economic reports that we get before the Fed meeting, because the inflation report is released on Tuesday, which comes before FOMC, and the FOMC rate decision could really set the stage for some concern about where the Fed will stand at the Fed meeting itself. I'll try to keep you updated throughout the course of the week. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of big meetings, a lot of big events. So I'll do my best to keep you updated. And if you have any questions, remember to post them in the comment section. I'll try to answer them as quickly as possible. Thank you. Have a great week.